You're listening to Chillworthy,
a podcast where two best friends discuss mysteries, murders, and anything in between for your enjoyment.
So if you're ready to hear some chilling and unsettling cases, you're in the right place. Happy listening.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, Chillworthy, with Talia.
And Brent. Hello, everybody.
So I have to say something right out of the gate.
Yeah.
It's haunting me. In a recent episode, I said, well, we were discussing Canada and if they celebrate Thanksgiving. And I was like, oh, yes, absolutely. And then I made a reference to Boxing Day being the day after Thanksgiving. Do you recall this?
I do.
Well, I was wrong. I'm thinking to myself, is that right? That doesn't sound right to me. Well, I looked it up and I was surely wrong. It's the day after Christmas.
So then are we back to we don't know if they celebrate Thanksgiving?
No, they definitely do.
Fine.
So unrelated, related.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for correcting the record there.
You're welcome.
We're not perfect over here.
We surely are not prime example of that. But I don't want to fail our Canadian listeners.
Absolutely not. I'm so happy that we have people listening from Canada.
I know. And I'm deeply ashamed over my mistake. But moving forward, onward and upward.
Right. Okay, well, we take accountability for ourselves. So how was your week?
It was good. I have been on a reading, well, I was going to say a reading kick, but what the hell else is new? First of all, I finished God of the Woods. Absolutely fantastic on every single level. Fantastic. I highly recommend to everyone.
And remind me again the author.
Liz Moore, I think. Liz Moore. Yes! Liz Moore. Now, I will say, trigger warnings, though, for people. There are some very, very sad parenthood themes. And the book also involves, missing children.
And this is supernatural? I forget. I don't even remember what it's about.
Okay, good. Well, and it's so multifaceted.
Well, it's not good if I want to know what it's about. I'm trying to ask you, what is it about?
I don't want to give anything away.
Well, just say what it's about.
So the book starts at this summer camp that this family owns. And the daughter, so it flashes back to like 1950s, mostly 1961-ish, and then also goes into 1970s. And the book, there are a ton of characters in it, but they're easy to like keep track of. And like the time frame it tells you like in front of each chapter or at the beginning of each chapter.
Yeah.
So this family owns this summer camp and the daughter goes missing. And then you find out several years prior, a son went missing.
Oh, all right. Fine.
But these are...
So it's mysterious.
Kiddos. Yes.
Fine.
Yes, correct.
All right.
And speaking of mysterious, so as you know, I'm obsessed with Jurassic Park, the original movie.
Yes.
And it occurred to me, I never read the book. And obviously the jig is up now for me with book is better than the movie because I am so obsessed with the movie and deeply ingrained in me since I was a child. And it's like totally one of my comfort movies. But I thought I should read this book. I should read it. I would like to do that. So I started it.
And you're enjoying it?
I am enjoying it. A lot of differences, like that I wasn't exactly expecting. But it's still very early on. But I am liking it.
All right. Well, I've thought about reading it myself quite a few times.
Have you?
No. I mean, I haven't read it. I have thought about it.
Right.
So.
What are you reading?
Well, I just started a book called Incidents Around the House.
That sounds terrifying. Is it spooky or?
Yes, it's supposed to be. It's by Josh Malerman, I want to say. Let me double check that. Yes, Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman, who wrote Bird Box.
Oh.
So.
Well, then you would think this is going to be a hit.
I hope. But I am so early on in the book. Like, the only thing that this book is about, it's from the perspective of, like, I don't know, a young girl, like a kid, and she lives in a house with her parents, but then she has this quote unquote other mommy who lives in the closet.
And I assume nobody else can see
Right.
other mommy.
Nobody else can see her, but she watches her at night through the closet door.
Oh, no, thank you.
And starts coming out more and more, even now during the day. And she continues to ask her the same question every day, which is, can I go into your heart?
No.
And so, but like I said, I'm only like 3 chapters in, but that's what the book's about so far.
Sounds like something I certainly could not handle.
I think it's great so far, but who knows? So
I don't know if you've noticed, I'm wearing one of my Halloween shirts today. I decided I just can't not do it. I am so excited. I recognize we're not there yet near the season.
Right.
I'm not going to consistently wear my Halloween garb.
Uh-huh.
But I would like to start introducing it, if you will.
I will. I mean, once September 1st hits, I'm all in. I don't need to wait for October at all. I
don't want to wait until October, but I do kind of feel like easy does it. Like September 1st,
That is fall. It's a burr. It's a burr month. September, October, November. I mean, December, that's not a fall month, but we're in the burrs, and I love them.
Yeah, I agree.
I love a good burr.
I agree. I mean, September is not one of my favorites, but it's kind of has to be just because it brings us to October.
Of course, it opens the door to fall.
Yes.
So yeah.
All right. So you're going today.
I am going today. Right. The only thing I want to say very quickly is just kind of tossing this out there to any of our listeners / followers who we all highly appreciate, that, you know, we have only recently made this a public podcast. You know, we had some episodes, you know, in the chamber, as they say in biz talk. So, you know, we did that first. But now that we are out there and live on the air, if you will, any listeners who want to engage with us are more than welcome to tell us their thoughts on some of these mysteries, or anything, actually.
Thoughts on how we're doing.
Right.
Anything you have to share.
All ears. If you like fall, tell us. If you don't, tell us. You know, you like Jurassic Park? Great. We'd love to hear about it. You don't? Awesome.
Any book recs?
Absolutely. So my point is, anyone can give us anything, and we're happy to engage with any of our listeners. So having said that, obviously you can still connect with us on Instagram, Chillworthy Podcast, but we also have an email, which is chillworthypodcast@gmail.com. So whatever your preference is, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And that's all I have to say about that.
Alrighty.
So, all right. So, yes, I am doing a case today, and this was kind of an intimidating case because there was like a lot going on in it and a lot of players in the case. And so to start off, I mentioned this to you a few weeks ago, but this case is actually like considered the Dyatlov Pass version in America, which is cool because the loyalists to Chillworthy will remember that episode number one was the Dyatlov Pass incident. So when I read that this one was the United States version, I was very interested in doing it, and so that is what the case is on today. And in like true crime world, it's basically called or known as the Yuba, Yuba County 5.
Yuba.
Right. Similar to the Springfield 3 that we did.
Absolutely.
All right. So a little like a little snippet of what this case is on February 24th, 1978, 5 friends from Yuba City, California, Gary, Jack, another Jack,
Oh, I hate this. I hate when they do the repeat names.
Theodore, and William. They set out to watch a basketball game. After the game ends, they end up driving to a remote part of the wilderness in the mountains. And
Fascinating choice after watching a game.
Right. Well, we'll get into that, but they're never seen again. Never seen alive again. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say how old these men are?
I will.
Okay.
Be. But that's just the overview of like, this is what the case is. It's a very, very sad case for various reasons. But anyway, so like I said, this case goes by a lot of different names, including the Mathias group incident, the Yuba County Five case, and like I said, even the American Dyatlov Pass incident. A little bit about this group of people involved in this case. So these 5 men, they were known as, quote unquote, the boys in their local area, but they weren't boys. They were, all at least in their 20s. And the thing that makes this case, I think, particularly like sad and kind of like heart-wrenching is that all of them had some type of mental health challenge. So they were all a part of this thing called the Gateway Projects, which was a program that helped people with mental issues. So I'm going to go through the 5 members of the boys. So the first person, we have Jack Madruga, and
his last name sounds like the spell that Ursula does in Little Mermaid.
Oh, Madruga, Beluga.
You've got to put the clip in, insert that right now of when you like edit this, you should put this, like, play the spell.
So you want Disney to sue us? I don't think so.
You can't do that.
Hell no.
Oh, I thought you could.
Unless you got a couple mil just sitting in a bank account somewhere. No, we can't use Disney music.
Scratch that.
God, if only. All right, so back to this.
Yes.
So Jack Madruga, he was 30 years old when he disappeared on this night. And a little bit about him, he was a high school graduate and an Army veteran. He'd been laid off his job as a busboy shortly before this disappearance. And he was known for his very friendly demeanor, and he had a strong work ethic. He was a reliable friend and a member of this local basketball team for the disabled, which was called the Gateway Gators, which obviously is from the Gateway Project. So despite the fact that he did have a lower IQ, he was still capable of doing a lot of things, including he had his driver's license. I think he was the only one of the boys who had a driver's license. His friends and family described him as good-natured and dependable, and which made the fact that he all of a sudden just disappeared very puzzling, because he wouldn't just disappear.
Unlike him, right?
Right. He was best friends with another member of this group, William, which went by Bill Sterling. So Bill Sterling was 29 when he disappeared, and he was a deeply religious man, and he was a very close friend, like I said, to Jack Madruga. He had a history of working at mental hospitals, like volunteering, where he would read like religious literature to patients and just help spread his faith. He was known as a social butterfly. He loved to talk to everybody, and he had been laid off from his job shortly before this night where they disappeared.
Well, that's sad.
I know. Like I said, he was known for his devout nature and commitment to his beliefs, which influenced a bunch of his actions and interactions, and he was just known to be very kind-hearted. So the next person we have is Jack Huett, who I believe was referred to as Jackie a lot. He was the youngest member of the group, and he was 24 when they disappeared, and he had a disability. Well, his disability resulted in him being illiterate, so he was not able to read. But he did work on his father's farm, and he enjoyed like driving his dirt bike all over the property. And again, he was another one that was characterized by his gentle nature, and he had a very strong protective bond that he shared with Ted Wheeler, who was another member of the group. And Ted Wheeler like often kind of like looked after Jackie. So Jackie's family noted that he had very like slow responses, which is why I don't think he was he wasn't able to do like a lot of the jobs that maybe some of the others were doing. But again, just that he had a very loving personality and that he was a loyal friend, and all of these boys were on the Gateway Gators basketball team. All right, so the next person is Theodore, but went by Ted Weiher, I think is how you say it.
Okay.
He was 32 when he disappeared. Ted was the oldest in the group, and he was employed at various times as a janitor. And as I said, he was very close to Jackie Huett, often taking on kind of like this caretaker role to him. So Ted was described as having a kind personality, and then again, another like gentle demeanor that made him a beloved figure among not only his friends, but also his family. The one thing of note was with Ted particularly was that his family had mentioned that he lacked quote unquote like common sense. And so like two examples that were given were like, one, so he did not drive, but when he was in the car with somebody who was driving, he never understood why you had to stop at a stop sign. Like just
didn't understand that
right,
concept.
just wasn't getting it.
Right.
Now the other one's a little more like dangerous, I suppose. Well, not I suppose it is. So one time his family's home caught on fire, and his parents ran in to wake him up. And from what I read, his bedroom ceiling was literally currently on fire. And when he woke up, he was like, he just wanted to roll over and go back to sleep because he wanted to be well rested for the next day. So like that kind of thing.
Right. Like that sense of urgency, or we're at emergency level here.
Right. Self-preservation, maybe.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that was Ted Weiher. Okay, so now we have one more person in this group of the boys, and
the other Jack. Because we only got to
Jack Madruga and Jack
oh my
Huett.
gosh, I'm so silly. I was so caught up in
the
Madruga. I forgot what Madruga's first name was. I'm so sorry.
That's
Continue.
all right. So this last member, he has some differences compared to all the other four that we've just talked about. Because if you recall, all these other four are being described as lovely and sweet and kind-natured. So this next one is just a little off that track, I think. And I feel horrible because I guess I'm prejudging him. But anyway, this guy was Gary Mathias. He was 25 years old when he disappeared.
So one of the younger ones.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, with Gary Mathias, he was an Army veteran.
So we have two veterans on this trip.
Yes. And he served in Germany, where he struggled with drug problems, and he was eventually discharged due to psychiatric issues. So he was the only one of the group that wasn't considered quote-unquote slow. And I say that because, we're in the 70s, so they weren't quite as up to speed as we are now on all these different, mental health challenges and issues and stuff. I mean, that's how they described them back then, which I think is sad, but What can you do?
It's completely inappropriate, but I get what you're saying with the
And just wait until I send you or show you one of the newspaper articles.
Oh.
Good Lord. I won't even read it out loud.
Good.
But anyway. Okay, so he was never actually considered quote-unquote slow, but he did suffer from paranoid schizophrenia. And he was on medication to manage his symptoms. So from what I gathered here, when he was on his medication, he was great and very, like, a good, productive member of society, like, not a lot of issues. But when he was off his medication, it was another story. So it says that Gary was known for his resilience and his ability to function well in society. And I guess he worked as an assistant in his stepfather's gardening business. But his stepfather did describe him on occasion as having, quote unquote, gone haywire at times when he stopped taking his medication. And like I said, though, when he was on it, his behavior was much, much better. Now, from what I read, Gary was very protective of this group of guys, and basically he was seen as the leader of the group. So now, if you will, open your phone and just scroll down until the first picture. There's a picture from the newspaper of all of them, lined up when they went missing.
Whoa. Unless I'm really missing something here, Gary looks like he's 45. And they all look like younger guys.
Yeah, I don't know what
he
that's
literally
about.
Looks like
I agree. He does look
leader.
old. Yeah.
I'm shocked at this picture. I also will say Ted looks pretty, well, not as old as Gary looks, but Ted
this
looks
was
older.
70s style. People liked
right.
big glasses and little mustaches. Of course, mustaches are back now.
They are.
But yeah, so that was basically the cast of characters that are involved in this case and a little bit of the background of them. So the boys, like I told you, were all on this basketball team called the Gateway Gators. And they were very, very excited because they had a big tournament coming up on Saturday, February 25th. So because they were so excited and to get them even more pumped for this game, they decided that Friday, February 24th, the five of them were going to drive to see another college basketball game.
Like to get intel or like
I think
tips
it was
and
just
tricks, support.
I think it was just like, we're so excited that we're going to play tomorrow. Like, let's go watch a game tonight. Like, let's get more pumped up. I couldn't say. I don't do sports ball, as you know.
Sports ball, right.
So,
right.
But
Get
they liked it.
Spirit of things.
Right. Yeah,
right.
I think so. Like, almost like a pep rally for them, sort of. So they drove 50 miles.
Did you like pep rallies?
I don't even think I've ever been to one.
Oh, your high school didn't just have them.
Oh, they had them, but
yeah.
I was never in attendance.
We had to go.
Oh, I don't think so.
It was during like school hours.
I don't know. I probably blacked it all out. So the five men drove about 50 miles north from Yuba to Chico. It's a Chico's kind of day. To watch another college basketball game. So this game, the game goes, and there were witnesses that did place them at the game. So we know that they did get to the game.
All five?
Yes.
Okay.
And from what the witnesses said, they were just cheering on the game and like having a nice time.
Everyone seemed like their normal selves.
Yes.
Nothing
well,
was
I mean,
off.
Right. I don't know how well these witnesses knew
good
them,
call.
but
good
they
call.
were there. They were
Nothing was
happy.
amiss.
Right.
Okay.
So,
or looked amiss. Okay.
So after the game ends, it ends around 10 p.m. From what I read, the boys now are going to be driving back home. They make a stop at Bears Market, which is just a few blocks away from where they were. So I guess the clerk was like preparing to close up. So he or she was slightly irritated that they came in because they were getting ready to, close shop. But whatever, like, I guess that was sort of good because then the clerk remembered seeing them for that reason.
Right.
But from what I gathered, they purchased a Hostess cherry pie. Sounds good to me. A lemon pie.
That sounds nice.
Also nice. A Snickers bar.
No thanks.
A Marathon bar, which I don't even know what that is.
They must have discontinued it from the 70s.
We don't know that.
Well, I think it sounds sus, as the kids say, the kiddos.
I'm sure it's bussin'.
We're so hip.
2 Pepsis.
Gross.
And a quart. Now, this is weird. Oh, well, I guess not because of the pies. A quart and a half of milk.
Also gross.
I like the sound of some pie and milk.
And you love Pepsi. Well, you like Coke.
Yes, I'll take a Pepsi. I'm fine with that.
I don't like any of their drink choices.
Fine.
Nobody's getting the seltzer. Now that sounds nice.
All right, so that's kind of the last throughout, like, chronologically, them stopping at that gas station, talking to the clerk. That's the last we have of somebody interacting with them alive. So now, the following morning, none of the 5 men return home from Chico. And their families are very worried, and they contact the police because, number one, the boys never stayed out all night. Like, that was not a thing that they did. All of them liked to sleep in their own bed.
Absolutely.
Early
bedtime sounds nice to me.
Right. So when they weren't there, I mean, that was very, very out of character and stuff. Some of the and the thing was, some of them were so excited about the game the next day that they had already, like, laid out their clothes, like their, what's it called? Not uniforms, right?
Yeah.
Because they were, like, ready to go. And if you remember, even from, was it Ted? Yes, Ted, because of the ceiling on fire.
Oh, yeah.
He liked to get his rest for the next day.
Right.
So he would have wanted to be home and had a good night's sleep to get ready for this tournament. So speaking of Ted, Ted had even asked his mother to wash his new white high-topped sneakers for the tournament. And he reminded her, "We've got a big game Saturday, so do not let me oversleep." So, as I said, all of this seems on brand for Ted. So, after the report was made, the county sheriff's department immediately launched a search. Now, if this is true, I think that sounds lovely because we've had our fair share of
delayed searching.
Right, absolutely. Like, don't worry your pretty little head about it. We'll take care of it.
Kids go missing all the time. Relax. Don't overreact.
And we are in the 70s, so
True.
I say potentially good for this sheriff's department.
Right.
And they launched this search for the missing men as well as the vehicle that they were in, which we'll get to the vehicle in a little bit.
Well, I guess we'll get to it, but maybe you can just tell me quickly. Remind me who could drive and whose car this was. Like, was Gary the driver?
No.
Okay.
It was Jack Madruga. Let me double check that, but I'm almost positive. Yes, it was Jack Madruga. He was the only one that was able to drive and that owned a car.
Okay.
Now it's a few days later. So Tuesday, February 28th, a forest ranger discovers Jack Madruga's car, which was a turquoise and white 1969 Mercury Montego.
I was obsessed with turquoise cars as a child. And turquoise in general. The color, not the stone.
I assumed, yeah.
Now I'm obsessed with the stone and the color.
Right, well, yeah.
So
I wasn't thinking people driving around turquoise-plated cars, but...
But that sounds lovely if they do.
What color was your first car?
Black. What was yours?
You say it like I should have just known that. Teal.
Teal? Well,
Yeah.
when you say turquoise, I think teal. Like, to me, it's all the same when it comes to cars. So I suppose I like teal as well.
Okay, I can't even there's nothing even in the room that looks like what color it was, but like, you know, like a bright kind of blue-green. A Sunfire.
Okay. Those were very popular.
Pontiac Sunfire.
Yeah. Did you
The air
like
conditioning was shit. But I remember my mom would... I said to my... Like, she remembers this, I guess, better than I do, but senior year was when I started to drive to school.
Okay.
Like, I didn't get a car up until then or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just remember... you know, when I did it like the first day and I got home, I said how much I liked it. And I was like, I should have done this years ago. So yeah, I was a little jokester back then, I suppose.
Always with the jokes. You like them.
I do. So anyway, back to this. Like I said, now it's Tuesday, February 28th. They're looking for this car. And a forest ranger discovers Jack Madruga's car abandoned on an unpaved road near Orville in the Rogers Cow Camp area.
I'm sorry?
Right.
And what's that?
I have no idea.
It sounds lovely for cows.
Well, my original thought was like that Disney Channel movie Overweights or Heavyweights. Remember that?
I remember the picture of it, but I never saw it.
Oh, what a movie. Like
what do you call it? The picture, like the movie poster, you know what I'm saying? Whatever that is. I don't remember what that looked like.
That was something else. But anyway, basically like a fat camp.
Oh, I thought it was literally for cows.
No, I'm talking about the Disney movie. I don't think, what the hell what are we reading here?
The cow camp.
Rogers Cow Camp? I don't know. I don't know what the hell it is. Listeners, you can look it up, chillers.
Let us know.
Yeah, exactly. Here, that's a great assignment. Please let us know what Rogers Cow Camp is.
Putting you to work. Oh my God, that was so funny.
So anyway, the car was found past the Elk Retreat, which was at an elevation of 4,500 feet. So that's roughly 2.5 hour drive from Chico, which is, I will show you this in a second, but it is completely out of the way.
So they're not going up there, especially how serious they're taking this game the next day.
They're going up there, sadly, but why would they? They're not going up there for anything good, one would imagine.
Well, I'm kind of thinking, were they, I guess that's
coerced.
Right.
Right, well, yes, I mean, that's a theory.
Yeah. I'm just thinking I could just see them, I would imagine, sort of freaking out over they don't stay out this late. Like, this isn't normal.
Absolutely,
they have the game
I agree.
The next day. Like, this would not be, no one would be in their comfort zone here.
Right. So where this car was found was in the Plumas, Plumas National Forest. And to get to where the car was, they would have had to travel 70 miles out of their way in the middle of the night. So like you said, very unlikely. So if you want to open the Notes app again, the first picture, if you scroll down, is going to be, it's just like a picture of a map.
Yes.
With the circles.
Yes.
So if you open that up, like, you know, zoom in on it, you can see that.
Oh, it's like a triangle.
The Alaskan Triangle. The California Triangle.
But seriously, from where...
yeah.
Now,
so the bottom one is where they lived.
Okay.
So, and as you see on this map, it's not difficult to get to where they were going. Like, there's
Straight
like
shot.
there's like 2 roads you have to turn, and that's it. So
I will
the same.
say they went quite a distance though to go to this game.
Well, they were excited.
I guess.
But when you see where the car was found, I mean, there's no big roads going over there for sure.
Mean, it looks like total forest and all mountains.
Right. So then if you continue to go down, I got you 2 geo spots to click on.
Thank you.
Because I know you enjoy them.
I do love them. That is one of my favorite things. I like to get my eyes on what's what.
I agree. But yeah, so the first one, I mean, what a gorgeous area, but freaking desolate again.
It is beautiful, but Yeah. There's nothing out here.
No.
I mean, I think it's a little promising. I don't know if no, that isn't a parking lot. That's just another road you can take. I mean, the fact that there's an obvious trailhead, I take that as a good sign, but.
Well, like I said, it was a national forest, but.
Right.
And then the second one is just another, because like obviously I couldn't pinpoint where the car was. So I just tried to get two different areas. Like this one is on the literal highway where I think the car was found. I just don't know if this was the actual spot.
Right.
But again, like they look so similar though, like very,
There's just nothing.
Right. Desolate.
Nothing out there. Very beautiful though, like you said.
Absolutely.
But, like, why would you be out there? And also these pictures, obviously, that you are showing are taken in the daylight. So they're doing this at night. I mean, you would be so turned around up there.
Right.
There's no street lights.
And from what I read, parts of like where they had to go to get where they had to drive to get to where they ended up, like some of it wasn't even paved. So like it was,
off-roading.
Right. And then if you continue to scroll down, you'll see just another random picture of kind of like the area, but then you will finally see the car.
That area, or aerial shot, I should say, is even more unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is like a straight cliff. It's not cozy looking. I mean, that's like a severely steep mountain. I mean, do we get to this possibly? But I mean, did the boys have any experience with? But that doesn't even matter though, because this is not what they were intending to do that night. There's no way. Like no one's going on a night hike, no less before this game.
No, and I will get into that, but they are not interested in going on a night hike. And then there's the car.
Yeah, the car is cutie in like a classic car way.
Yes. So now going off of what you just asked, something to note here was that Ted's father had said that Ted hated the outdoors, especially at night. Bill Sterling's father said that Bill hated going camping and didn't want to be out in the wilderness. So, no, they weren't like just saying, hey, just for shits and giggles, let's go
like
into the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
In the middle of the night and go look for Bigfoot, which would be fantastic. But,
not
anyway.
for everybody.
Right.
They must have been absolutely terrified.
Right.
Terrified.
So at the site, the police found no signs of foul play. The car was unlocked, and one of the windows was rolled down, and the keys were missing. So the interesting thing about this is that Jack Madruga, like I said, whose car it was, he was a big car person. Like, he loved this car.
And like
meticulous
the type. About it.
Yes. Like, I'm not that type, you're not that type, but there are those types out there.
I surely am not.
Right.
Do you remember, real quick, years ago when one morning I got into my car and it just had a weird vibe in it. And I was like, I think my car was possibly broken into.
This does sound familiar, but I don't know what happens next.
Well, not broken in like no one broke anything to get into it. I think I forgot to lock it. And it just, the front part of my car was in decent shape enough that like I could just tell things were off of how I had not had them.
Mm-hmm.
And the back seat was absolutely atrocious. And I said to you that I felt like whoever got in like took one look and was like, I can't even deal with this. Like, I don't have the wherewithal to even try. I'm getting the hell out of here. Like, whatever. There isn't anything for me.
I mean, I do sort of remember that because I had that same thing happen where it was like I got in my car once and I was like, I don't know, something's a little bit different.
Yes.
And then I noticed like there was no change in the change holder
They
anymore.
left my change.
But I also remember meeting you somewhere for some reason at like a car wash or something. And I remember you opened your trunk to... Oh, because I think actually...
We both did it together.
Because I was after you to be like, would you please clean this out? And you opened that trunk, and it was like I was at a Home Depot or something. I mean, so much shit. And you were pulling out like air fresheners, but it was like a lot of air fresheners. It wasn't just one.
Where would I get air fresheners?
Yeah, it was like those plugins or something.
Oh.
And I wanted one bad, and you refused to give me even one.
That was I was going to say, I do not use them. God, that was a long freaking time ago, and I don't remember withholding them from you. I apologize.
I think you'd still do it. Don't put on a facade for the chillers. Anyway, so yeah, we're not car people the way Jack was, but
right.
So the thing was, though, it's just somebody who really, really loves their car, they're not going to leave it unlocked.
Right.
Is the
or
first
window down,
right.
Desert it.
Yeah. So when they searched the car, they discovered inside the candy wrappers, the milk carton.
Oh, from when they stopped at the
right.
store.
The basketball, I guess, like program thing that they give out. And I guess he had a map in the glove box, but that was completely untouched. It wasn't out. It was just neatly tucked away where it's supposed to be.
Which makes me think somebody who was in this car knew where they were going.
Right.
They didn't need a map.
Which gets me to my next point, which is that despite the rough and basically like not taken care of roads, the car showed almost no sign of damage at all. Like, in terms of it didn't get beat up, right? Like when it was out here. It still had a quarter tank of gas left, and it wasn't, quote unquote, stuck in the snow.
Wait, it was snowy with it being, I know you said
yes,
February.
They were above the snow point. What's that called? The snow line?
Oh, on a mountain.
Yes.
Wait, I just had a thought. Do you think that if they were maybe naive to someone who was at this shop, this store, and said like, hey, hitchhiking was a thing in the 70s.
As we recall from that other case.
With the boy, Michael.
That was the 80s.
Oh, okay. Well, it did happen in the 80s too, but 70s for sure. And if they were unsuspecting, they were vulnerable, naive potentially, someone asks them for a ride to hitchhike and then things go awry.
Right. I mean, there's so many possibilities in this. It's just... But anyway, I said the reason I said the car wasn't stuck in the snow was because the police saw that there were some signs that the tires had been spun out a little bit as if they had been stuck. Mm-hmm. But the thing was that the way the car was positioned, only one of the back rear tires was like a little bit off kilter, like off the ground, so that there was no traction for it to like get them out. Like, get them back moving.
So they would have, like, deserted it there, he's thinking.
I guess from what I researched, the people were trying to say that it wouldn't make sense that they would have just left the car there because, like I told you when I was going over, like, the list of people, some of them worked on farms, they had dirt bikes, Jack himself loved his car, and the police said, or investigators, whomever it was, said all you would have had to do was either, because all these guys were athletic.
So they could have like lifted it or
they could have pushed the car a little bit just to get it out of that one little area. Or they said potentially all somebody would have had to do was just sit on the back of it to push so that the tire would hit the ground and they would be able to like easily get out. So it wasn't like this hopeless situation,
right.
Is my point. And I think a lot of people, especially back then, were like really being very callous / what would you say, like discrediting them because of their
intellectual disabilities.
Right. But the thing was they were able to do a lot of things, and especially when it came to things like cars and stuff.
And
like,
physical strength. Like
right. It's like they weren't helpless,
right.
is what I think I'm trying to say.
Right.
So it just didn't make sense that the car was like there, but nobody tried. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is they didn't have to abandon the car if they didn't want to, but
they had the
for whatever reason, they left it.
Right.
And then the other thing of note, just when it came to, this was that because the car had like no signs of damage, it was like how you said earlier, either somebody maneuvered that car like meticulously across all of the rough terrain, because like I said, some of this wasn't even paved.
Right.
Or somebody who was driving was completely familiar with where they were going and the roads, as to like basically anticipate every bump and dip and stuff as they're going.
Right.
So for 5 days, forest rangers combed the area, but they found no trace of the men. And I wanted to say this. I think that we should develop some type of bingo card for when we do cases, because there's so many similarities to these cases. Like, we could do bingo cards like search dogs, bingo cards like bad weather, bingo cards like delayed investigation,
Very good idea.
just for fun.
And then we can yell bingo
Right.
during an episode. I love this. Love where your head's at.
But soon after the search began, a severe blizzard hit.
Oh my God.
And it buried any potential tracks under about 9 inches of snow on the upper mountain. And like I said, they were 100 feet above the snow line, I guess we'll call it. So it was such a bad blizzard, in fact, that the search teams themselves were nearly trapped 2 days later, and their snowcats struggled through the heavy drifts. And it was so intense that 2 of the searchers almost died.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And these are trained people who know what they're doing.
And are prepared for it.
Yes. Going in fully prepared, not caught off guard. That's terrifying.
Right, because in one of
boys.
in one of the interviews, I don't remember which of them it was, which of the 5, but I think at least 2 of them had said to their parents, like, I don't even need a jacket, because we're just going to the game and we're coming right back.
So not even a winter coat with
No,
them.
no. So when this car was found, it was the only actual clue that authorities found for 4 months. So, like I said, they searched around and stuff, but nothing else happened for 4 months.
Now that would take us to June, right? If this was February, March, April, May, June.
Right. Well, the end of June.
So all spring, nothing.
Right.
Not until summer.
So now there is something interesting, though, that is, well, it's confusing, but so after learning about the disappearance of these boys, a man named Joseph Schoens, Schons, contacted the police with some interesting information. He claimed to have seen the boys that night in the woods. He said that he saw these men between 11 p.m. and midnight on the Friday night that they went missing.
What the hell is he doing up there?
We'll get to that. So Schoens had been driving up a gravel road to, I guess, look at a cabin he was considering renting.
That late at night.
I guess. And you're right. I mean, the whole thing is fishy, but
For sure.
He's driving up this gravel road to check out this cabin. He gets stuck in the snow. So while he's trying to free his own vehicle, he suffers a heart attack.
Oh my gosh.
Apparently, the heart attack was so intense that he vomited and defecated next to his car, because that's what he reported to the police. So now the details on what happened next are very unclear, but there are 2...
Or 3.
No, just 2 primary tellings of it. Do you have something to say? You raised your hand.
I do. Just something to verify.
Yeah.
This all is happening February, and I'm sorry, when did you say this man came forward with these little nuggets
I don't know
of
when
knowledge?
I don't know what day he came forward, but it was after the public had learned about their disappearance.
Oh, so we're not talking June.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Although I to be honest, I truly don't know when he came forward with this. Just
Made
that
his
he
declarations.
Right. Anyway, while he was trying to free the vehicle and he gets this heart attack, what happens next? There's 2 different versions. So in the first version, it said Shones laid in his car until around 11:30, and he saw 2 sets of headlights approaching from behind him. One belonged to a car, and the other belonged to a pickup truck. It was reported that he got out of the vehicle and attempted to flag them down. The vehicle stopped about 20 feet away from him, but the passengers, I guess the passengers got out for a second, but then got back into the cars, and they drove off again together. And then Shones had to spend the rest of the night in his car before he eventually walked back down the mountain the next morning.
And he's saying that the passengers who got out and went back in were these boys. He saw them.
Right. He was saying, but it was 2 different cars.
The pickup truck and the car.
Right.
Is he saying the car was, in fact, Jack's car? Jack Madruga's car? I mean, how much is he even able to see up here in the pitch dark with only the headlights?
Yeah, I don't know about that, but the thing was, his car was found like 40 feet or maybe a little more from Jack's car. Like when the forest ranger found Jack's car, he also found Shones' car. So like that part of the story was true. He was up there and he did get stuck.
And when the ranger found Jack's car and Shones' car, Shone was also still there.
No, he had walked to get help
after his heart attack.
Yes. Although the ranger did make note that he did see the defecation. So
well, anyone can poop. I mean, he just had to go.
Right, just saying that part of that story was true as well.
Fine.
Now, in the second, a little bit more mysterious version of the events, Shones reported hearing a strange whistling noise when he was in his car. Kind of like somebody who was like trying to call a dog or something, like get somebody's attention.
I have the chills. Ha!
Chillworthy. That could be on the bingo card. Ding, ding, ding.
Yes.
Bing, bing, bing. He also, so he heard the whistling. He also saw what he believed to be a group of men, but also a woman carrying a baby. And they were all walking in the light cast by somebody's vehicle headlights. So now, keep in mind, this man's supposedly having a heart attack at the moment. So he called out for help. So when he calls out for help, the lights of the vehicle instantly turn off and people are not whistling anymore. Basically, like they didn't know he was there.
Then they did after they heard that, and then
right.
Is it common to hallucinate when someone's having a heart attack? Like,
it's also odd you say that, because he actually said that to the police. Like, after he was telling them the story, he's like, but I was having a heart attack. Like, maybe I was just making it all up. So very strange. Very strange.
I mean, I don't know if that is a thing. It just made me think, like, how shady. He definitely sounds shady. This whole thing sounds shady, but I'm thinking, what if oxygen was cut off to his brain and things just aren't, he's not at his best.
Right. No, I would say not. And I'll get to something else in a second. So anyway, the whistling stops, the lights turned off, and they just basically
freeze.
Right. Like, well, nothing happens then. They don't help him. They don't go any closer to him. Like, they, I guess, go further away.
It just doesn't. I don't know.
A few hours go by. Then he notices flashlight beams outside of his car, and he calls out for help again. The lights again immediately go out. Eventually, Shones has to walk 8 miles down the mountain to seek help. That's when, like I said, because Jack's car was very close by, he had to pass the abandoned car on the way down. And at that moment, he claims he didn't give much thought to the abandoned car because a lot of cars get stuck up there. So like, just like his just did. And the park officer, he reported to, like, it wasn't like something crazy, but because they were looking for this car is what made it noteworthy.
Right.
Anyway, so that's what he had to say. So adding to this potential, like, possible sightings, a woman also reported seeing the 5 men in a red pickup truck on both Saturday and Sunday, about an hour's drive from where their cars were found, because she owned a store in the area and recalled that 2 of the men came in to buy food. One of them made a phone call from a nearby booth, and the other 2 remained in the truck.
Can I stop you?
Yes.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, so she's kind of corroborating
Correct.
Sean's story. But what I was when you had said to me earlier he wasn't at his best, I feel kind of shitty saying this because, like, again, I didn't know the man. I don't know. But from what I gathered, he was a major alcoholic. And somebody had asked, there was like some interview, and somebody said if Sean's ever ended up dead, the entire town would be a suspect because nobody liked him.
Jeez.
So
tough crowd.
Right. And the last thing, which cuts down his credibility as well, is that I guess the investigators looked into this and, like, there was no cabin that he was going to check out.
Certainly
so
makes
take
sense.
that as you will. So just to your point, no, he was not at his best.
And people can go up a mountain for the hell of it with no real
certainly
intention of doing much of anything.
At midnight in the snow.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Besides just sitting there or whatever. He would have no way of knowing in advance that those boys were there.
But would he?
Well, now wait a minute. This woman with the shop, that had nothing to do with Sean's.
No, he said there was a truck, and she said that she saw them in a truck. But, I mean, they were, from what I can tell, because that's the only information I have on this lady, is that she just had said there were sightings. However, I think it's also important to note that there was, at one point, a reward that was going out. And so they were getting a lot of
tips.
Yeah, because people want money. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They're all in the rat race.
Now, back to also this shop lady.
It honestly doesn't matter what you're about to say because I know I don't have an answer.
No, you will, because I want to make sure
I can't wait.
That I don't misunderstand something. She is the shop, though, that our boys went and got snacks.
Yeah, but not the gas station, not the milk and pie shop. I'm saying not that. No, it was a different one. Apparently after they disappeared, because she said she saw them she said she saw them Saturday and Sunday show up in a red truck.
No car.
Right, because the car hadn't moved. That's why
stuck.
Right. So she saw them Saturday and Sunday show up at her local shop to buy food, is what she is claiming. Only 2 of them went in. One of them made a phone call.
Well, the phone call is the next thing that I was going to say. I wanted to make sure that those were the boys we were talking about. I imagine the circles that these boys had were small circles. So who the hell are they calling? You know what I mean? Like, my point in saying that is, if they're making a phone call, it's obviously a call for help, I would imagine. This was an unintended trip. They're stuck on this mountain. It's been several days. What the heck is going on? They missed their game. I would imagine that they were all pretty, like, rigid about their routines and, like, what was expected of them and responsibilities that they had. It was out of character. I would venture to guess they're calling their parents or other family members, but yet none of these family members, I assume, say that they heard from them.
The only person I even picture going to that phone is Gary. Yeah. Yes. Who knows why. But
and then truly, I wonder if this woman's telling the truth. Is she covering
don't
for
we
someone?
All? Truly. Truly, is Sean's telling the truth? Who the hell knows?
Right.
All these questions.
I know. I don't have a good feeling.
All right, so now we are going to get to the next section of this story, which is sadly the discovery of some of these men's bodies. Like I told you, months go by.
June.
Right. So now, in June of 1978, a breakthrough occurs. There's a man, he's riding his motorcycle through this area, and he spots a broken window on a Forest Service trailer, which is located about 19 miles up the mountain. Where the
rangers have their stations? Like, that's where the window...
Yes. So 19 miles further up the snow line is from where the car was found, is where this trailer is. These forest trailers are basically stocked to keep somebody alive for up to a year.
Oh, wow.
So when the guy was riding past and sees that the window's broken, not just was the window broken, but there was also a horrible smell coming from inside the trailer. Now, something of note is that a forest service snowcat, which is what, like a
four-wheeler.
I was going to say a jet ski. No. Yes, like a four-wheeler. It traveled from the road to this particular trailer on February 23rd, which would have been the day before the boys went to the basketball game. And so some people theorized that with it being so snowy and dark, that if the boys did get stranded, they would have seen these tracks. And number one, it would have been an easy thing to walk on compared to unpacked snow.
Right.
And also like, oh, maybe these tracks lead to help, basically.
Right.
So,
right.
That was like a theory going on out there, which is how, like, basically maybe they got to the trailer because they followed the tracks that went to the trailer to check on it, basically. Right. So inside the trailer, this motorcyclist discovers a body that is wrapped head to toe, and I literally mean head to toe, in blankets, basically like a mummy, on one of the beds. And when the blankets were removed, sadly, the face of this individual had basically completely decomposed by then. The feet were also in horrible condition, and there was so much frostbite that the body had been missing 5 toes due to the frostbite.
So when you have frostbite and you don't get it taken care of, the parts of your body that are frostbitten just fall off?
I think so. They turn black and fall off.
I did not know that they fall off themselves.
Yeah. It was eventually determined that this was the body of Ted. Now, something that's really interesting and just continues to add just more layers of mystery is that when Ted went missing, he was clean shaven on his face. When he was found, and like when they were doing the autopsy, his beard growth was evidence that Ted had been alive for at least 8 weeks up to potentially 13 weeks after they disappeared.
So potentially living through spring.
Yeah.
I mean, 8 months, that would have been...
Not months.
Wait, I'm sorry. Weeks. You said. So that would have been 2 months.
Right. So like March, April.
And potentially up to May.
Yes.
Which, if you think about it in terms of the frostbite and like him, if he's the one who layered himself in these blankets...
Well, he wasn't.
Oh, okay. I was
only because it was head to toe that he couldn't have done it because
right.
I was going to get to that, but his arms were pressed up against his body. So like somebody wrapped him up.
Right. Like probably after the fact. Because
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, still though, with the frostbite, like it would have been still very cold up there throughout the spring.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, because of how high up in the mountains they were, yes.
The elevation, yeah.
So like I said, because of the way his body was wrapped up, it was determined that he did not wrap himself up. So at the very least, there had to be one other person who actually was in that trailer with him. So there were a pair of tennis shoes found in the cabin, but interestingly, these shoes did not belong to Ted, but another member of
the boys,
the group. Would you like to guess who that was?
Gary.
So they did not belong to Ted. They belonged to Gary.
And no sign of Gary besides these shoes.
Right.
Well, I don't think that sounds good for Gary, though. I mean, you need your shoes up there.
Well, Ted's shoes weren't there. And Ted had on boots.
So he like swapped out the sneakers.
One would imagine. Now, I'm not saying that was done maliciously. Right, exactly. Just like the Dyatlov Pass people had grabbed other people's clothes. So like, but yeah, his shoes weren't there, but Gary's tennis shoes were. So this discovery prompted search and rescue teams to obviously intensify their efforts, and they start to scour the area around the trailer for further clues. So the trailer, though, wasn't the only structure in this vicinity. There were 2 other sheds outside of it.
If I could just stop you.
Absolutely.
Remind me how many miles away this was from where...
20. Well, 19 to 20.
This really bothers me with the search efforts then. Because how did, when they were searching and they found the car, somehow no one knew 20 miles away? They couldn't tell by some map or some record keeping that they have of these... areas of that was a national park, you said?
Right. Like
that, oh, these are actually buildings, these are structures that, like, what if something did happen and they're hiding in there, or they're trying
I thought about that originally too, but when you really stop and think how far 20 miles is.
In that terrain.
Right. In that terrain, on foot, in the winter, snow,
yes.
going. And that's why I made a specific note to say that this was 20 miles up the mountain. What's crazy is had they gone roughly like 100 to 200 feet the other way, they would have been under the snow line. But they went the opposite way.
I still fault the searchers, though.
Fine, all right, well, then you said what you said.
This seems unlikely. But shame on them for knowing these buildings existed. This trailer was there. The trailer is literally built for people to survive. You said up to a year. You wouldn't just go check it out? You wouldn't just go? Like, yeah, the likelihood that they made it up there is slim. But come on.
I guess. I don't know.
I think it was faulty.
I'm just saying, 20 miles to walk. Like, I wouldn't necessarily... Talia's missing. Hey, did you check that shed 20 miles away?
If I go freaking missing, I hope to God you... trek your ass up 20 more miles to see if my dead body is in there. If you have the time. I don't want to bother you or anything. Or
oh, yeah, you. Of course.
God.
I remember when we were at the movies once. I lived in a different area at that time, and Talia lived pretty close. And I remember we were going to go to the movies, and I said, would it be okay if you, stopped to get me? And
well,
she was like,
if I lived by the movie theater.
You didn't.
Oh,
you had to pass my house.
I thought you said I did.
And you said very, surely, I guess. It's going to be a little out of my way, but I guess I can. About 2 minutes out of the way, but,
I must have been joking.
Yeah. There's a lot of revisionist history now that we're on a podcast.
But I did it.
Now you're going to all of a sudden get me an air freshener, and you were more than happy to stop to pick me up.
I did it, though. I did
You
stop.
Absolutely
you
did.
You should go 20 miles up the mountain.
I would be happy to.
And look for me and my remains.
Just like Bart Schlayer. When those people rented a freaking plane to go when the police did it.
Those good friends.
Absolutely.
Those are the friends to have. Bart's.
All right. You've got me way off track here.
I'm sorry.
Oh yes, you were shaming the people.
There's
yes.
the searchers. I shamed
right. The searchers who almost died. We're shaming them. That's right. Okay, so anyway, there are these two sheds outside. One contains food, and the other contains other equipment, which is like blankets, torches, stuff like that. So some of the food rations were opened, which there was a total of 36 food rations that were opened. But when you think about it in terms of 5 men and how long they would have been there, 36 is incredibly low.
Right, not enough.
No. Also, there was a ton more food in the trailer because, like I said, you're supposed to keep somebody alive for a year. There was a ton more food in the trailer that was not touched at all. And the sheds, it was determined that both sheds were broken into with a crowbar. But even though the heating supply shed, that had all the blankets and torches, even though that was broken into, it was left completely untouched. Nobody tried to take anything out of it. Nobody ever tried to make a fire. And they had all the equipment there to just strike up a match and light a fire whenever they wanted, and they just never did. And it was determined that Ted did die of hypothermia, and that's why it's he died of being freezing cold, and yet nobody lit a fire.
Was there any, what were the contents of his stomach? Could they tell, how much he had been eating? Did he,
I didn't see any of that.
Yeah.
One of the speculations, though, is that maybe they didn't want to start a fire because they didn't want people to know where they were.
I can't imagine that. They didn't want to be up there.
No, I don't think 4 of them did. But this is what I keep thinking. We're not done, but the thing that I keep thinking about is if, for whatever reason, Gary got off of his medication, as a paranoid schizophrenic, what if he was under this assumption that somebody was after him and or them, and it wasn't like he was doing it maliciously, but almost like he thought he needed to protect them by kind of sweeping them away somewhere else. So it's like in that realm of what I'm thinking, you're not going to want to light a fire. You're doing this in the dark of night. Like, I don't know. There's nothing to prove that. It's just something I think about.
Right.
All right. Now we are at the next day. So the following day, searchers uncovered the remains of Jack Madruga and William Sterling. So their bodies were found on opposite sides of the road that was leading to this trailer. And that was about almost 12 miles from where their car had been abandoned. Sadly, Madruga's body had been partially consumed by animals at this point.
Oh my gosh.
And had been drug roughly 10 feet by something to a nearby stream. He was found lying face up with his right hand curled around his watch.
Oh.
And Sterling's remains were located in a wooded area nearby. So 2 days after the discovery of those two, even closer to the trailer than they had been, still along the same road, was Jackie Huett's body. Now, what's even more sad/disturbing about this is that his body was discovered by his father, who was on the search team. So
poor man.
Jack Huett's father, while searching, sees his son's jacket along with a pair of Levi's and some shoes. And when the father goes over to pick up the jacket, his son's spine falls out of it. So that must be pretty jarring.
I have no words. Like this, I don't even know what to say. This poor man. I mean, only positive, and I feel like terrible even referring to it as a positive, is that the closure of finding his son, like his son has been found.
Right.
But how will he ever get the image of that out of his head for the rest of his life?
Right. The next day, an assistant sheriff from Plumas County found a skull about 100 yards downhill from the rest of these bones, and that was later identified to be Jackie Huett's skull by looking through dental records. Jackie's remains, like those of Sterling and Madruga, were located northeast of the trailer. To the northwest, about a quarter mile away, searchers came across 3 wool Forest Service blankets and 2 cell flashlights lying by the side of the road. The flashlights were like rusted and stuff, so they might have been there for a while. But the thing is, I don't think there's any direct correlation between, like, were those their blankets that they even used? It's just they were found, but
right.
There's nothing saying that it actually was pertaining to them. It could have been anybody who was passing through who needed blankets or something. So,
well, I feel like it wouldn't have been them necessarily, because you said that one shed that had all the winter equipment was untouched.
Right. Well, I don't know what was actually inside the trailer.
Right.
Like, I mean, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So now, of course, everybody's found.
Except Gary.
Yes. So there's no trace of Gary Mathias, though investigators, like I told you earlier, did find his tennis shoes inside the Forest Service trailer. So because they found them there, this leads them to speculate that Mathias might have removed his shoes so that he could put on Ted's shoes, because they were like leather ones, better like for the cold. And they also said that I guess Ted had larger feet than Gary, but if Gary's feet were swollen because of like frostbite, it would have been probably more comfortable to be in bigger shoes anyway. And although the men's bodies were heavily decomposed by the time of discovery, autopsy results suggested that they had likely succumbed to exposure, like all of them. So when they had looked again at where Ted was found, on the table beside the bed, he had his nickel ring engraved with the name Ted on it, a gold necklace, his wallet, which still contained cash, and a gold Waltham watch with its crystal missing. And the families, when they were questioned about this watch, all of them said that it didn't belong to any of their sons, this one certain watch.
And Gary's family was also questioned in that?
I guess. Now, the other thing about where they were found, or where Ted was found specifically, was that there was actually a propane tank connected to the trailer, which, had he just turned it on, would have provided heat to the entire thing, including giving them like fuel to cook with. But it remained completely untouched. And then I have a quote in here from Yuba County Lieutenant Lance Ayers. And he said all they had to do was turn the gas on. All they had to do was turn it on, and they'd have had gas to the trailer and all this heat. John Thompson, who was a special agent from the California Department of Justice who had joined the investigation, described the case as quote-unquote bizarre and quote-unquote full of unexplained elements. He said every day there were 1,000 leads and no clear answers. The mystery then continues to deepen with the speculation of the men's families, because some of them were saying, I guess Jack Madruga's mother was quoted in saying that there was some force that made them go up there. She said they wouldn't have just run off into the woods like a bunch of quail. We know someone made them do it. We can't imagine how someone could have overpowered those 5 men, but we know it must have happened. Ted's sister-in-law added, they saw something at that game, maybe in the parking lot. They might have seen it without even realizing what they saw.
I did not think of something like that.
I mean, I didn't either, but...
A very good point. Well, and I also think it's very interesting that these are direct statements from family members, and no one is mentioning Gary, and they're including Gary in being overtaken by this other force, this other person.
Right. I don't have this written in my notes, but I do remember kind of skimming around seeing this, where I don't think all of the men's families were fond of Gary.
Okay.
But again, like I said, there is no hard evidence whatsoever that he did anything wrong. I just think that when you contrast him to the other 4, like the other 4 seem so similar, and he just, I feel like, seems not. He just doesn't seem in the same kind of, category of the other 4. Like, he seems like he could be a little more calculated and, again, paranoid, schizophrenic, like, and that's why one of my theories is going under the assumption that he thought he was doing something good by protecting them from maybe something that wasn't real.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So we are now at the newspaper article that
it's horrific.
Right. I just hate it, but I want to show it to you anyway. So.
Alrighty. Thank you in advance.
Yes. Just scroll down. It's just so insensitive.
I was just going to ask you now, where do I find this? Yikes.
Just the title.
Well, obviously.
I know it was this freaking 70s, but I hate the title.
Oh, I agree.
And for the listeners, it uses the R word, which I just don't like.
No. Oh, it's an absolutely atrocious word, and I can barely read this article because
I can't read the article. I can only. Yeah, I didn't get to read the article either. It was just a picture of the article, but I mean the headline. I was like, I'm just not a fan of the headline.
No, not at all.
So our man, we'll say, instead of the actual word, may have survived 1 month. Basically, they're just talking about, I'm assuming they're talking about Ted, because he was the one that, with the
beard.
the clean shaven versus the hair. So now we come to a couple of questions about this case. I mean, I feel like there's hundreds of questions about the case, but so of course people are asking themselves, why did the Yuba County Five end up on this mountain? Because again, the drive from Chico to Yuba City is very straightforward, like I showed you. I mean, it's like 2 turns and you're there. And where they were driving, snow was not an issue. I mean, it wasn't like snowy
down below the mountain.
Yes, exactly. So like that wasn't a problem. They didn't have to like take a detour or anything like that. But yet the car was found thousands of feet above the snow line in a completely different direction. So it's just like, again, what would have caused them to even abandon the trip back to their homes? Like, what threw them off course to begin with? And like the family said, I mean, was it something that they saw at the game? Didn't you say something could have happened at the gas station?
I said that if someone like saw them and tried to say they were hitchhiking.
Oh, yes.
And then they, they're vulnerable, they're naive, potentially, maybe not even. And then they are just trying to kind of be a good Samaritan, and then they get in over their head.
Right.
And also, too, like we always say with these older cases, there's no surveillance where we see who may have approached them at the gas station, who may have approached them at the game, any of those things in the parking lot.
Then, of course, we have the question about the car. And again, just how it's like it's found in completely working order. It's not out of gas. It's not even locked. One of the windows is down, which is so bizarre in terms of the fact that even if they abandoned the car, why the hell would you leave the window down in the snow?
Right. And so cold.
Right. And the keys were missing. So it's like, were they looking for these keys, and that's why that Joseph Shones man saw these flashlights?
Good point.
Like, were they, looking for keys, but then when he called out to them, maybe did they get scared and stop looking for the keys and turn off the,
I wish with Shones, too, we really could. I wish he was more credible of a witness because, I'm thinking, is that woman and baby completely made up and not true? Or was it a hallucination he was having?
I know,
or something?
what an odd addition.
Right. But if these random people asked these boys to take them somewhere, like, was that who this woman was with a baby and, like, with a man or something?
Right. And I mean, having a baby, I would think it draws
people are more likely.
Well, right, like draws them in to be like, oh, they need help. Yeah. Who knows?
Absolutely.
I don't know.
It could be. Also, the size of this car could not fit that many more people, you would think, and especially whatever this truck was. In the bed of the truck, more people can go. I don't know.
And then it's like the idea that they abandoned the car and then they just happened to wander 20 miles in the dead of night in freezing conditions, not dressed for it, to this trailer. It's like whatever motivated them to go, because again, like you're constantly going uphill. So it's like that's not the path of least resistance by any means. So I don't know. One of the thoughts when I was looking this up was like, potentially did the 3 of them die on that track and only 2 of them, which was Gary and Ted, actually make it to the trailer?
Oh.
The 3, what if they had succumbed to the elements before even getting there, which makes sense why there wasn't as much food that was like tampered with or anything like that, because only 2 of them ever, because there was like physically evidence-wise, there was only evidence that those 2 were ever in the trailer to begin with. So
good point.
And then the other thing about like them, I mean, Ted had lost like 100 pounds or something. Like it was a huge amount, yet there was so much food still there. Mm-hmm. So it's like, why did he not eat? Yet again,
it's very peculiar.
Right. So now we're going to get to some of the possibilities. And Bigfoot is not any of them this time.
Good.
None.
Good.
Sadly. So, an oldie but a goodie. Good old hypothermia and disorientation, and everybody's taking their clothes off and that kind of thing. Paradoxical undressing. That's on the top of the playlist.
Right.
So that's, of course, one of the things. Like, it's just, could it have affected their judgment and veered them off course and stuff? But what are they doing there in the first place? I mean...
Right. I think that's the bigger question. Like, it's very easy to imagine that they would get easily turned around up there, and that they're not hikers. They're not outdoorsmen in that way going up to this mountain that's snowy and tough terrain. But like what you just said, why are you even up there at all that late at night of all nights before this game? There's so much that just doesn't add up to even placing them there.
Yes, well said.
Thank you.
Then something we've been talking about this whole time is like the involvement of a third party. So did they encounter somebody not part of the group that decided to coerce or force them to drive up to this mountain for whatever the hell reason? This theory is partially supported by basically just the unusual nature of the drive and the fact that they ended up in such an extremely isolated area, and they didn't even like the outdoors.
No, to be that remote and in pitch black darkness, so unsafe. None of them would have wanted to do this.
Right. Then, of course, did one of them, or potentially a few of them, have some type of mental health crisis or psychotic break? And, like, that would just have made them, like, go off course for some reason. Again, who knows? One of the lesser thought things, but this is kind of where it has that connection to the Dyatlov Pass, is remember when I told you in that episode about that theory about infrasound?
Yeah, it was difficult for me to understand, but yes.
Just that sometime when wind goes over mountains in a specific way, it creates a weird vibration frequency that makes people act not correct, like not right. I don't know.
Bizarrely.
Right. And then the last one that I paid special attention to was because, as you know, as you have seen, Gary was never found, has still never been found. And that's obviously an interesting part of the story. And the fact that, again, he had some more severe mental disorders. Like, I feel like the other four were like benign disorders. His could have been potentially dangerous. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're getting at.
Well, I'm saying like somebody who is quoted as saying they don't have a lot of common sense versus a paranoid schizophrenic who has army experience. And I forgot to say, did get in trouble with the law before.
One of the intellectually disabled boys had army or some branch of the military experience.
Yes, he was dead, though, by the end. So it wasn't him, is what I'm saying.
But I'm just saying that doesn't... I don't know. I mean, I'm rooting for Gary. I hate the stigma and that he's a very easy target because he has this diagnosis. Like, that really bothers me, and... I
just like to know where the man is.
Right, but I mean, I'm thinking he's no longer with us. Like, just because he's still missing, I feel like I don't...
He'd be, yes, he's old now if he's alive.
No, I mean, like, I don't think he survived. Like, I think they just haven't found him, but
I think gotcha. Okay.
You know, became deceased around or shortly around when they became deceased. And...
Well, and... Like, I mean, I know I not to sound like a broken record, but I am still saying I'm not of the camp that he did it maliciously.
Right.
But I'm just saying that if he became so paranoid about something and thought they all needed to hide, that would result in being dangerous, is what I'm trying to say. Not that he was this evil person, but
right.
But anyway, so the point was, you know, he potentially survived the entire thing, or at least longer than the others from what we can gather. So it's kind of like, if let's just pretend that it was those were the only two who actually made it to the cabin when Ted ended up dying, did Gary decide then that he was going to wrap him up like that and then just try to go get help again because now situations have even been more dire? Like, maybe he had been taking care of him the whole time, and once he died there was nothing holding him to the cabin location. To, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, because he would have been next. I mean, if he was able to actually go get help. Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, and then, I mean, really the last thing is just that, like, it's very unlikely, but I mean, he could have survived the entire thing and is just out there somewhere. And we know these police love to say people just started anew. They ran away. They started anew somewhere else.
Exactly.
So basically, to wrap it up, it's just the fact that Gary was never found, regardless of what happened to him, just adds more of a mystery to it, because it continues to then raise these questions like, did he die alone in the wilderness? Was he part of the victim of foul play, or did he experience some kind of crisis that made him lead the others astray? So it's just his missing part of the end of the story is just like this critical piece that would be amazingly helpful in understanding what actually happened to them. But it's been a long, long time, and I guess it's not impossible to think, though, that his remains could be discovered sometime.
Absolutely, if he died
in the woods,
right out there. Yeah, it's also crazy to me when you think about like all of these cases that we've done, and how one little thing could really throw something off track. Some are obviously more like involved than others, but it's like when these unsolved mysteries happen and these people go missing and their poor families, you know, like what we do in these podcasts, like going over all the possibilities and like kind of hypothesize over what could have happened. And it could have been something not malicious at all, no foul play, something just goes awry, and that you'll never know. Like, there's no one to kind of set that straight, and that, I don't know. Like, I feel like some are probably so simplistic on what actually occurred, and it could have just been like a terrible term, I guess, to use, but like a comedy of errors of like terrible things going awry. It's just crazy to think about.
I agree. And I guess the last thing I want to say is I just think the whole reason that I feel like this case specifically like strikes a sadder chord for me was just the fact that they didn't have all their faculties about them. Like, I think that that's what, because I think it just adds like a little bit more of maybe like a layer of innocence, if you will, that some of the other cases didn't have. Not that they aren't all sad, but just, I don't know. That one, I just feel like it colors it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So, do you have any last minute thoughts to say to the chillers?
I don't think.
You never do.
My brain is firing rapidly with what I just heard each time. So I feel like I'm not up for the small talk after that.
All right, well, I'm going to stop asking you then. But,
no, keep asking.
So I just want to say one more time, like I said in the beginning, please feel free to reach out because we would love to hear, any and all feedback on any and everything. So I think that wraps it up. So thank you all for listening. And as always,
stay safe
and stay chill.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. You've just listened to Chillworthy. Thank you for joining us on this latest episode. While we strive to keep our discussions engaging and lighthearted, we also wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the real lives and events that are at the heart of these stories.
We try to approach each topic with a sense of curiosity and respect, fully aware of the impact these events have had on the individuals and their loved ones. Our goal is to honor their memories by keeping their stories alive and shedding light on the mysteries that surround them.
If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, and don't forget to join us on the next episode of Chillworthy.